hold truth whatever the consequences were. Jafar stood up and addressed the king in the following words: O king, we were plunged in the depth of ignorance and barbarism. We adored idols, we lived in unchastity, we ate the dead bodies, and we spoke abominations. We disregarded every feeling of humanity, and the duties of hospitality and neighborhood were neglected. We knew no law but that of the strong. When Allah raised among us a man of whose birth, truthfulness, honesty, and purity we were aware, and he called to the oneness of Allah, and taught us not to associate anything with him. He forbade us the worship of idols, and he enjoined us to speak the truth, to be faithful to our trusts, to be merciful, and to regard the rights of the neighbors and kith and kin. He forbade us to speak evil of woman, or to eat the substance of orphans. He ordered us to fly from the vices and to abstain from evil, to offer prayers, to render alms, and to observe fast. We have believed in him. We have accepted his teachings and his injunctions to worship Allah and not to associate anything with him, and we have allowed what he has allowed, and prohibited what he has prohibited. For this reason our people have risen against us, have persecuted us in order to make us forsake the worship of Allah and return to the worship of idols and other abominations. They have tortured and endured us until finding no safety among them. We have come to your country and hope you will protect us from oppression. The king was very much impressed by these words and asked the Muslims to recite some of Allah's revelation. Jafar recited the opening verses of Surah Maryam, wherein is told the story of the birth of both John and Jesus Christ, down to the account of Mary having been fed with the food miraculously. Thereupon the king, along with the bishops of his realm, was moved to tears that rolled down his cheeks and even wet his beard. Here the negus exclaimed, "It seems as if these words and those which were revealed to Jesus are the rays of the light which have radiated from the same source." Turning to the crestfallen envoys of Quraysh, he said, "I am afraid I cannot give you back these refugees. They are free to live and worship in my realm as they please." On the morrow the two envoys again went to the king and said that Muhammad and his followers blasphemed Jesus Christ against the Muslims, were summoned and asked what they thought of Jesus. Jafar again stood up and replied, "We speak about Jesus as we have been taught by our Prophet. That is, he is the servant of Allah, his messenger, his spirit, and his word breathed into Virgin Mary." The king at that once remarked, "Even so do we believe. Blessed be you and blessed be your master." Then turning to the frowning envoys and to his bishops, who got angry, he said, You may fret and fume as you like, but Jesus is nothing more than what Jafar has said about him." He then assured the Muslims of full protection. He returned to the envoys of Quraysh the gifts they had brought with them and sent them away. The Muslims lived in Abyssinia, Ethiopia, unmolested for a number of years till they returned to Medina. In this way, Quraysh's malicious intentions recoiled on them, and their machination went with utter failure. They came to fully realize that the grudge they nursed against he Muslims would not operate but within their realm of Mecca. They consequently began to entertain a horrible idea of silencing the advocate of the new call once and for all through various channels of brutality, or else killing him. An obstinate difficulty, however, used to curtail any move in this direction. Embodied by the Prophet's uncle, Abu Talib, and the powerful social standing he used to enjoy, as well as the full protection and support he used to lend to his nephew. The pagans of Mecca therefore decided to approach Abu Talib for the second time and insisted that he put a stop to his nephew's activities, which if allowed unchecked, they said, would involve not him into severe hostility. Abu Talib was deeply distressed at this open threat and the breach with his people and their enmity. But he could not afford to desert the messenger too. He sent for his nephew and told him what the people had said. Spare me and yourself, and put not burden on me that I can't bear. Upon this the Prophet thought that his uncle would let him down and would no longer support him, so he replied, O my uncle, by Allah, if they put the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left, on condition that I abandon this course until Allah has made me victorious, or I perish therein, I would not abandon it. The Prophet got up, and as he turned away, his uncle called him and said, Come back, my nephew. And when he came back, he said, Go and preach what you please for Allah, for by Allah I will never forsake you. He then recited 2 lines of verse pregnant with meanings of full support to the Prophet, and absolute gratification by the course that his nephew had chalked out in Arabia. Once more Quraysh approaches Abu Talib. Quraysh, seeing that the Messenger of Allah was still intent on his call, realized that Abu Talib would never forsake his nephew, even if this incurred their enmity. Some of them then went to see him once more, taking him with them a youth called Amara, and said, O Abu Talib, we have brought you a smart boy till in the bloom of his youth, to make sure of his mind and strength, and take him as your son, in exchange for your nephew, who has run counter to your religion, brought about social discord, found fault with your way of life, so that we kill him and rid you of his endless troubles, just man for man. Abu Talib's reply was, It is really an unfair bargain. You give me your son to bring him up, and I give you my son to kill him. By Allah, it is something incredible. Al-Mutim, a member of the delegation, interrupted, saying that Quraysh had been fair in that bargain, not because they meant only to rid you of that source of hateful trouble, but as I see you are determined to refuse their favors. Abu Talib, of course, turned down all their offers and challenged them to do whatever they pleased. Historical resources do not give the exact date of these 2 meetings with Abu Talib. They, however, seem more likely to have taken place in the 6th year of prophethood, with a brief lapse of time in between. The tyrant's decision to kill the Prophet, now that all the schemes and conspiracies of Quraysh had failed, they resorted to their old practices of persecution and inflicting tortures on the Muslims in a more serious and brutal manner than ever before. They also began to nurse the idea of killing the Prophet. In fact, contrary to their expectations, this new method and this very idea served indirectly to consolidate the call to Islam and support it with the conversion of two staunch and mighty heroes of Mecca. Hamza once approached the Prophet and most defiantly and brazenly shouted at him, "I disbelieve in by the star when it goes down," and then he Gabriel approached and came closer. In other words, "I do not believe in any of the Quran." He then started to deal high-handedly with Muhammad and laid violent hand on him, tore his shirt and spat into his face, but his saliva missed the holy face of the Prophet. Thereupon the Prophet invoked Allah's wrath on Utbah and supplicated, "O Allah, set one of your dogs on him." Allah responded positively to Muhammad's supplication, and it happened in the following manner. Once Utbah with some of his compatriots with Quraysh set out for Syria and took accommodation in Az-Zakah. Then a lion approached the group to the great fear of Utbah, who at once recalled Muhammad's words in supplication and said, "Woe to my brother, this lion will surely devour me just as Muhammad supplicated. He has really killed me in Syria while he is in Mecca." The lion did really rush like lightning, snatched Utbah from amongst his people and crushed his head. It is also reported that a wretched idolater from Quraysh named Uqba once trod on the Prophet's neck while he was prostrating himself in prayer until his eyes protruded. More details reported by Ibn Isaac testify to the tyrant's deeply established intentions of killing the Prophet.